Hey guys, Mark Allen, BH Spring Solutions LLC and bhspringsolutions.com, back for another session of High Power University. We have been digging deeper and deeper into the subject of the high powers trigger and the high powers trigger pull, and now we are about to go much deeper. And where we are going in this study is we're going to try to piece together some things that are actually known to be fact or we can prove, or things that seem to be supported by either design work or patents or blueprints or something. Because the high powers history, quite frankly, the more you read about it and the more that you read online and stories and opinions and blogs and different things, it reminds me a lot of in school one time. I think we were about 8th grade, and there was a demonstration done by the teacher, and what happened was 6 students were selected, walked up to the front of the class. 5 of those students then walked outside and shut the door. The teacher told a story to the first student, and then that she had written on a paper. And the one student from outside would be student number 2. Student number 1, who had just been told this story by the teacher, told student number 2. And then students number 3 and 4 and 5 followed. And each one in progression heard the story and then told the story. And then by the time the last student had come into the class and had heard the story, this student needed to tell the teacher the story. And the story had quite a few details and that were very relevant. And then the last student tells the teacher the story, and then the final thing is the teacher reads the original story, and you get a comparison demonstration of what has happened after this story has been run through the washing machine and the spin cycle about 5 or 6 times. Well, you can imagine, in the years since John Browning started working on a high power pistol until today, there's lots of opportunities for things to get kind of short-circuited in the information. So today we are going to dig deeper into the whole subject of the high powers trigger pull especially. But in order to do that, we need to go places that I'm not sure I've ever read or seen anybody ever go before. So that's what BH Spring Solutions is hoping to accomplish by some of the memorabilia and hardware that you see here laying on the table. And specifically, here's where I'm going to go with this, and here's where we're going to start. I printed off this was actually something published online in 2010. It was about John Moses Browning and his creations, and it's not my intention to go through this entire article and pick out the truths and the not truths or the speculation or whatever. There was one part in it, and frankly most of this entire article really is frankly excellent information, and as far as I know seems very accurate to me. But we get to a point in this article, and I'll show it to you here. It's the Browning high power automatic pistol, and specifically I'm going to go to the first paragraph and then the last line in this section, and I want to point out to you how information can get a little misinterpreted. The Browning high power pistol was initially developed by Browning in 1922, but did not reach production until some years after his death. It is quite an attractive pistol. The last line in that section says, "We can only assume that John Browning had too many other irons in the fire at the time to flesh out this great pistol before he passed on." And speaking of the high power pistol in the form and configuration which we know it today. But those words struck me. It says, "We can only assume that John Browning had too many other irons in the fire at the time to flesh out this great pistol before he passed on." Okay, well, let's see. The year then, yes, was 1922, and he finished a handgun that actually was the last patent that John Browning received. This patent came through about 4 months after he passed away. Here's something that if you're taking this effort of High Power University seriously, I would encourage you to stop the video, go to a Google search bar, and type in U.S. patent and do this number right here, 1,618,510, and it's about 14 pages. There's 2 pages of the actual drawings by John Browning. This is John Browning's, as far as we know, it was his last patent that he received. Again, it was 4 months after he passed away. This relates to the pistol for the application filed June 28th, 1923. And this handgun was, we understand, designed and completed in 1922, kind of as this article says. But where we're going with this is the handgun, as best as we can glean from history, that was the predecessor to the modern high-power pistol as we know it and as it was finished in 1935. John Browning filed for this patent in 1923 for this handgun. It was a high-capacity 9mm intended handgun. And immediately you see the likenesses, the lines of the grip, the angle, the nose here of the front of the handgun is very high power-esque, kind of very signature high power-esque, if you will. So every reason to believe that many of the design components of this handgun did wind up in the 1935 version. But what makes this so interesting is this is John Browning's last work to receive a patent. It drew on his entire life's work history of design and just amazing work that he had done. This was the last patent received for that, and because of that, it's kind of irresistible not to dig into this and just see what he did, because, you know, as we know, so many of his designs are just, you know, they're timeless, and they were revolutionary and incredibly innovative at the time. I personally believe that John Browning's work changed the course of human history without any real question about that. Anyway, this is his last design, and we're going to be going into some sessions that are based on really kind of dissecting this design and comparing, and we're going to get an image of what was originally designed by John Browning and then what was altered by Dieudonné Safe. So having this printed, and I have to tell you, the actual patent application is 12 pages in length. There's page 1. It ends here at page 12. Signed and witnessed the 26th day of June 1923. The drawings that were included with the patent have John Browning's signature on them and his attorney's signature, it looks like, on those 2 pages. Really quite fascinating. Now, why should we care about this? Well, I have to tell you, some of the design elements, after I read through this entire document and multiple times, because this is so rich with details about John Browning's design work and how this handgun works. This was set to be unlike any other handgun that the world had ever seen before, and I have to tell you, I don't believe the world has yet seen a handgun like this. Now, this is not to pass judgment on the P-35 and how it came out, you know, when it finally, went into production. But some of the design elements of this handgun, I mean, will just leave you shaking your head if you really read into this and understand it. I'm going to point some of those out because this is so interesting for us. The first thing that I noticed, here, let me point you to a couple things about this document. Starting on about page 8, that would be here, starts from page 8 all the way till the end. There are 45 different elements in this handgun for which John Browning is desiring to secure what is termed letters patent for different elements of design work in this handgun. Interesting to note, the idea of the double stack magazine is not even mentioned in this patent. It's obvious from the drawings that it appears that a high capacity 9mm magazine appears to be what would be intended, but this is not something that John Browning was claiming in this patent application anyway, to be his work. So that's kind of it's a debate out there, but what we know from this is he didn't mention that. One of the things he did mention, which is quite interesting off the bat, and I'm going to show you. This is a picture that can be found online too. This is a picture of this 1922 or 1923, or some term it the 1927 Grand Rendiment, using the patent year of 1927 as the date. This is a later version after it had been changed over to a hammer-fired version. This is a picture from, it looks like the Browning Museum, or a copy out of American Gunmaker, John M. Browning publication. This is a picture of, looks like the tooled version of a prototype of the handgun that we're looking at the patent paperwork on. And it says here, this was John M. Browning's last pistol development patent application filed June 28, 1923, and the patent number granted 1927, 3 months after the inventor's death. It was first produced by Fabrique Nationale in 1935 as the model 1935. However, it wasn't produced in this configuration at all. One of the things I want to point out to you that really are going to get your attention, notice in this entire pistol that you see here, you don't even see so much as a pin, and that's because there is not so much as a pin. You see down this side, clean. There's no levers. There's just everything is just incredible finish work. The rear of the handgun had a bolt assembly that was removable, and this assembly that removed contained things like the extractor, the firing pin, the mainspring. It was all included in here. The slide operated inside the frame, and that would be like CZ75 style, where this slide is actually sliding inside the frame, and the frame is built to lap up over the edge of the slide like that. It appears that was an element that John Browning was claiming as being his work in this patent filed in 1923. As we look at this handgun, this is something I just found is absolutely profound. And if this doesn't shake you up a little bit, man, it's hard to imagine what would in terms of firearms. This entire firearm can be disassembled with no tools. It contained 6 springs. The P35, when it came out in its original version, contained 9. This one contained 6 springs, and I'm not joking. It involved no tools in order to disassemble. And let me just give you a brief explanation. With the slide recoiled, the safety, which was in the back of the slide, which was a up and down kind of motion of a safety, that safety could be removed, the bolt rotated, and could be actually just then removed from the slide. At that point, the slide can be removed literally off the frame, and the barrel stays in the frame. The barrel would stay where the barrel cam lug is locked in the frame cam. And that's how this handgun came apart. Once the slide was completely off, the trigger, which had no pin, it had two arms that worked as pivots in the frame. The trigger and the trigger lever were installed already together. So this was basically a one-piece assembly that was installed, already put together with a trigger return spring on it. And it could not be removed when the barrel was in place. And I'll show you here the proximity of that bottom of the barrel cam lug and the top of the trigger. In order to do the pivot movement of the trigger, and this was also a subject of this patent that John Browning mentioned more than once. There's 45 different design elements that he claimed a patent for within this patent application, and this was definitely one of them. And the fact that the trigger could not be removed from the handgun if the barrel was in place. Reason being is because you could not accomplish a forward moving and a pivot in order to release the trigger from the place where it lives, and then it's literally dropped out that way. The trigger lever was different than Diodone Save's design. It appears installed differently, but it was definitely a trigger lever that was reaching up and going to reach up into the slide. Here's something funny. When you say it can literally be completely disassembled, I'm talking detail stripped, disassembled down to all the pieces, parts, and springs with no tools. So what I can tell you is if this handgun in this configuration, as John Browning designed it, would have ever been made, BH Spring Solutions would have had a very short list of tools that we would have been selling for this handgun, like none. And the slide stop was internal. You didn't see it. It was internal, all worked internal. The bottom of the slide stop was also a screwdriver, and it would be the screwdriver that you would need in order to release your in order to get the magazine release assembly out. The magazine release assembly was just like the high powers that we know it today, and just like on a 1911, that was common in this handgun as well. But you need a screwdriver to remove that. The bottom of the slide stop was designed as that screwdriver. It could remove that. It could also remove the one grip screw, which was at the bottom in the grip. So quite literally, this entire handgun could have been assembled in a factory with literally no tools for the assemblers whatsoever. Not one. They could have used a slide stop to put on the grip panels and then install the slide stop, or also install the magazine release. So what we're going to do is we're going to dig into this a little deeper, and we're going to go, what do we recognize in the modern high power? What did Diodone Save change? This entire piece of work, and if you read about it, is absolutely stunning. And one of the first things that we're going to get into, we're going to talk about, is I want you to take a look at that part in this we're going to call it the 1927 Grand Rendement pistol. That looks just similar to your Type 1 sear lever and how it came out, but John Browning had designed this part initially to do something much different, and this is part what we're going to key in on in our next session is this sear lever that became the Type 1 sear lever in the modern high power pistol. As we go along, you will see, if you see things online like this article I was just explaining, they say, in 1922, there's also a model 1922, looks like this, has nothing to do with what we're talking about. This was a enhanced 1910, basically, that John Browning did, and made it into a longer barrel version for a Yugoslavian contract. So not to be confused with that, but we're looking for some clues and some relevant information about where did the high power go from this configuration that John Browning originally intended to the configuration as we know it today. How did he do this without even so much as a pin? And now, that's not actually 100% true. On his drawing, we do see a pin. It's right here. That would be the frame cam for the barrel lug cam. He did promote that to be a pin installed through the frame, but that would be a pin that would be not considered to be necessarily removable for any reason after it is originally installed. So this would not be a quote what you would think of as a removable pin. It would have, you know, some elements of permanency, and it would take an effort to get that piece back out of there. But anyway, we're going to leave there, and next time we're going to dig into what did the fire control group of this handgun look like, and how did it turn out in Dieudonné Save's version of the P35. Thanks for watching.